I'm hopeful this will be the first session at the summit that is conducted entirely in French, but we'll see. We'll see how
The
popular that is in the comments.
summit is in French. Cool.
But look, it's so
Right.
cool.
Something I give you a quick tour. Like in
Yes, please.
Sandbox, you can display NFTs from others.
Incroyable, merveilleux.
You can interact with board. You can see all the NFTs that are part of a hub. Then be taken to the page where you can buy them, whether it's on OpenSea or on Sandbox as well. You can do plenty of like animation and dance.
Très important.
Well, of course, emotes. It's the avatar, the social status, the animation are key, I think.
Et qu'est-ce que c'est cet endroit? Where are we right now? Is this kind of the central hub, or?
Exactly. That's the main hub where all players will be going to enter the Sandbox. So it's a place where you get to socialize.
Who is this huge statue over here?
It's a statue.
Is this you, Sebastien?
Do I have like white bird like that, like this guy? So this is a metaverse guide. Here he's greeting me on my way into exploring, and I guess this is a monument to his person.
Well, now, I mean, it brings up a question. Since this is the Virtual Beings and Virtual Society Summit, how do you think about NPCs in the Sandbox?
Well, I think it's interesting and a very interesting question. Like in an ideal world, and initially in our design, we wanted to have social hub with no NPC, just humans, and that you will interact with. And we thought that would be the best. But in some cases, you might, as a player, encounter, depending on at what time you connect, where you're from, which instance you fall from, not have too many humans into this pretty big worlds. And we thought that NPC were still a value add in terms of like giving you some quest, giving you some information as part of the tutorial. And well, they are pretty distinguishable from actual humans, as you can see. So that's
how do I? Isn't that old guy is the metaverse guide, right?
Yes, and he gives me some quests. Like here, I need to reach the graveyard inside the heroes area and talk to the flying boat. So, all right, let's follow that quest. And by giving to the humans, the real beings inside some quest, it actually drives traffic into that world. He's going to get people to move to a certain place to another, and that's a consistent experience that any newcomer can do. So that you have both people who are used to be in a hub, they have their habits, maybe they will just not care about the quest, but newcomers, they might like to be guided a little bit and discover the whole thing before they become insiders themselves.
It's so cool. And could you see sort of NPCs as companions beyond just giving guidance, also staying with you, being part of your party, I guess?
NPC will be much more used into like all the single player experiences at Sandbox, I would say. Here, they are just meant to provide some simple information, some story, some culture about this world as well. Like think of it like it's the first time you enter this space. So it's almost like visiting like a monument, a museum, etc. There's cool stuff there, but you want to learn about it. And not all the humans here are going to chat about the serious stuff. Some might just be joking.
So what does this portal take us to? That looks pretty amazing.
We will transport us to another land, a neighbor land into Sandbox. But here, as you can see, it's actually not enabled. I actually need to own a multipass. So here, it's gated, and you need to own a certain NFT in your wallet as a user.
We were just talking to James from Collabland around token gating and all that. Super interesting. So do you kind of think of this as almost like a Disney World with endless immersive experiences going up to something as sophisticated as Galaxy's Edge, or how do you kind of think about this metaverse and the entertainment thing.
Yes, I definitely think like it's gearing toward like offering all sort of experiences for various type of users. Here, we obviously know the four type of users from the Bartol taxonomy, like killers, achievers, socializer, etc. But what here we're contemplating, I think, it will go beyond that. You have multiple spaces within those hubs. People can dance. We can trigger like a pretty autonomous dance as a group. We can follow each other, and we're building Sandbox with this idea in mind that we want to offer templates so any landowner can publish like a virtual gallery, a virtual museum, a fashion show, a virtual concert, a game, an architectural building, and a house. And they can host into their house some parties, some birthday parties, some wedding if they want. It's driving a lot of different use cases, adding gamification. Wow, look at this. The way we also design the hub, it's to trigger those interactions.
You'd be arrested.
Maybe not. You can do this kind of thing in the metaverse. And like, who have thought, oh, it's just a statue. What can I do there? Can I try to climb it and try to dance at the top of it? I didn't think of it, but now I see someone doing it. Well, do I want to do it myself as well? Sure, I do. So let's find out. Like, how did he do that? Where's the trick? How?
Well, speaking of artifact, starting to play with Sandbox and create things, and are you starting to see digital fashion kind of growing in the NFT marketplace?
Oh, absolutely. I think like our identity in the metaverse is essentially being defined by how our avatar is looking like. So the way you looked and all the assets, the digital assets you own as NFTs. Having like unique avatar with a custom design like Artifact is doing is definitely going to create a lot of social interaction. As the owner of that super cool meta jacket that they have,
right.
Like people will recognize you, might interact with you. Some might be familiar. Oh, this is the Artifact jacket. Where did you get it? Or like, are you part of this community initially? This is I don't know, imagine this tuxedo was a wearable that you could only get if you attended the concert from deadmau5 on this launch party. That it means like you were there. So member of that community.
We're so used to to Gucci and Chanel being just global brands, but obviously Chanel started as a little community around Coco Chanel of people who believed in it, and you wore a Chanel hat and people said, oh my God, you must know Coco, and you're part of that tribe. And from that tribe loyalty came a global brand. So that makes a lot of sense that if I would see an Artifact piece of clothing, I would kind of feel a connection with this kind of secret tribe of people that are interested in that or a completely different fashion brand. That makes a lot of sense to me. That I'd feel a bond with you pretty quickly, just if I'd seen you with a Bored Ape. I love that. Wow, this is quite a vista.
The community, the appartenance to a certain community based on how you look is getting stronger. And our culture, what's interesting is like there's a whole new culture in place. Like people value the Bored Apes, for example, for many reasons. People value Artifact for their creativity more than now Vuitton or Chanel. So, but the brands that are missing, they're not going to understand well that culture. They might miss something in the metaverse. I would really urge those brands to think of a strategy, not just to bring the existing high-end fashion, but think again themselves, like, what is it really we truly are about, and why would want people to wear us and through their 3D virtual avatar into different gaming worlds and metaverses.
Well, I'm curious. You've created a decentralized metaverse, and we're seeing Epic and Apple fighting, and it's been occurring to me a lot that like the fight today is Epic versus Apple, and the first metaverse world with Fortnite. But the fight tomorrow will be between a decentralized metaverse and a centralized metaverse. So I'm curious, how much do you see the metaverse as something that needs to be decentralized? Do you see it that there'll be two areas of the metaverse, one controlled by centralized worlds and one controlled by decentralized, or do you think it's not quite as black and white as that?
I
Because
do
we all
think
love
like
Epic. I mean, we all admire what they're doing. It's hard to say that we're on a different side to Epic because it's like they're so smart. Why would I want to be on a different side to Kim and Tim and all those people? But at the same time, they are centralized, and there is a like philosophy that seems to be quite different to the crypto-driven philosophy and Web3 philosophy.
absolutely. I think like if you look at the definition of the metaverse, like we want users to own their identity and use their identity across multiple virtual worlds, meaning like they are self-sovereign by owning their avatar, owning their digital asset, owning their own currency and money. So being their own bank. So I'm obviously voting a lot in favor of like we need to build in 2021 the metaverse with a fully decentralized approach, putting users and community first through true ownership and NFTs. If we don't, basically we're just replicating what 25 years of video game industry where like Second Life, RuneScape, and all the other World of Warcraft, they were virtual world with millions of users. They were metaverses as their users started to build more content, etc. But it were all controlled by central entities that define that base their economic model on retaining their users, owning their data, and preventing them to
rent seeking,
renting or selling, etc. We don't want a world like that. And we want also to change the paradigm. Like when Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook and Horizon says like he want to build a metaverse where it's a lot about like how you do transactional commerce. I think like this is really a wrong approach. Like we're not building new world and new experience for people to just do a transactional commerce and transaction. I think like we need to re-envision where the value for the user, and the value has to go to the user first to be to offer something really meaningful to them that will keep them.
Well, James from Collabland was just telling me that the Axie Discord is larger than the Fortnite Discord. So the opportunities around digital ownership are pretty vast. But I do have a question about, how Sandbox progressively decentralizes, because, my first impression when I first talked to you was, of the Decentraland and crypto voxels and Sandbox, I felt that there was such kind of aesthetic decisiveness in Sandbox, that there was a real core creative vision for how it should work. So, how do you progressively decentralize to the community so that they have power without creating something that's anonymous and kind of not creatively visionary? And I know it starts centralized, but how do you foresee getting getting more and more decentralized?
That's a really good question. And it's true, like Sandbox starts with providing a lot of guidance in the creative vision and encouraging creators through its tool, demoing the content by building it ourselves first, demoing the systems. At the end of the day, we are already becoming one of the most decentralized worlds, since the lands, which are the core components of where experiences are being published. We have a total of 164 lands, and we have now more than 11,200 unique landowners. No one of them owning more than 1% of that map. The next step is, our goal is like by the end of 2022, all lands will be in the hand of users. We will, as Sandbox, own no more lands. By the end of 2023, as Sandbox, we will no longer own any sand as well, the utility token of the platform. So the community will own both the currency of the land, create the content and own the content, create the experience, own the experience, monetize those experience in the world. And it will be a right time. So probably by Q1 2022, we want to introduce the governance as well with the DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, where token holders, land, sand, avatar, will get to vote into a major decision of the platform, like which feature to prioritize on the roadmap. How do I allocate the funds from the foundation?
Who do you think is doing that right today?
I would say Decentraland has really, they launched their beta in February 2020, and they went quite fast in the route of like going fully decentralized in applying like the DAO, etc. And it's really interesting to witness how that works. And I think like Decentraland has a lot of great events, social activity, and so on. But somehow the fact that they sold all the land right from the beginning made also the land hard to get for new entrants. So hard to get builders into the ecosystem because of that. And because there's a lack of content, there's a lack of users to engage with the content behind. So we do believe that there is the approach we have where we are progressively bringing brands, bringing new builders, supporting them with the content, and adding all the gamification mechanics as we build the creation tool first before the decentralization is a path forward that hopefully bring funds, engagement.
I mean, it does feel as though decentralization has perhaps slowed things down a little bit for them. Like a centralized kind of ferocious visionary might have like kept that boulder rolling for longer. Whereas I think, I mean, that's very interesting how you guys time the gradual decentralization so that the momentum, can continue, that gradually like more hands are pushing the boulder forward, but it's not like, okay, we're just going to let the boulder stop, you guys pick it up, and then it's kind of pauses a little bit. I think but it's such a difficult thing to figure out.
Absolutely. We're really into new uncharted territories. The way that we achieve it, it's very exciting to witness. And I think like even the founding team no longer being part of like how the project evolved now, fully in the hand of community. It's live experiments and it's turning really interesting.
Well, go on.
Yeah. No, good. Tell me.
Well, I love just the Vitalik thing about like, oh, they changed the power of my spell. And I was like, I'm never going to play with centralized games again. And you guys might actually solve that problem, that the community would vote if we're going to, level things differently or change the algorithm in some way. The community would have a period to argue about it, debate it, and then vote on it. How do you think about, so would the governance token, that would be the thing that would give you votes, or you'd also get votes for land and for sand or some kind of formula, or it would just be the governance token?
It's going to be a formula that will essentially give more voting weight to users who own sand, who own avatar, and who own lands. Meaning that either you're participating into the economy of the world, whether you are actively playing and your avatar might have many hours of gameplay and levels, meaning giving you more weighting power, or you are actually a creator. You are an engaged person that should have more voice than one that just participating, just owning sand, for example. So that's what we want to build. I think there's also this interesting quote from Vitalik that says like a lot of the decentralized ecosystem, protocol, etc., they still need to have some sort of like this dictatorship at the beginning where like someone as a captain of the ship, and that comes back to why we love the Bored Ape as the captain, is setting a certain direction. And once we feel like, okay, this is going to be a smooth ride, we can totally hand it on to the community.
It's fascinating watching it with Friends with Benefits. I'm not sure if you've been tracking that, but just seeing Trevor like gradually decentralize himself, or however you want to put it, like, but he's still needed as a kind of figure in the background, sort of like Vitalik, like you kind of need that, which places a huge amount of ethical pressure on that first instigator to be ethically sound and not just ethically sound, also like emotionally highly intelligent on like how to nurture and push and step into the background, step into the foreground. It's very difficult. Vitalik was also talking about whales, like, and whale voting and the incentives and all that in the last sort of month or so. Do you think that will be a problem? And also you were saying it's a formula between those three things, but will there be a separate fourth thing, a kind of governance token like AXS, or how do you think about that? But maybe you can't
Sand,
say. Maybe it's too early to say.
no, but we have the white paper for Sand. Sand is both an access token, a way of payment, buy asset on the marketplace or land, staking token, and the governance token in Sandbox. So there's no other token we are planning for. The whale voting. So the way we want to fight against just whale owning most of the land. It's not the case in Sandbox. There's no user who own more than.
I know, that was great when you gave that statistic. You should be very proud of that. That's terrific.
Absolutely, we have a fantastic community, but also like the fact it's not just about owning more sand to have more power, but it's really like we want like the voting to be attached to your proof of engagement. So basically, your avatar can level up, meaning that the more hours you spend playing, collecting, and completing achievement, completing quests, exploring the metaverse.
So it's a real intersection of like game mechanics where like, there are trophies and POAPs for what you're doing in the game with cryptocurrency and ownership. Like that's fascinating.
We think it should be like that, to be fair. Like people who spend the most time into a world are normally the one who should decide of where that world is going. Like, well, and that's yeah.
Do you see a difference between creator economy and play to earn? And what do you kind of think of that difference?
For us, the creator economy is part of the broader play to earn concept, because the vision of Sandbox has always been to turn players into creator. So we're always trying to mix the two. We want to enable the possibility to have millions of new jobs being created in the metaverse.
Yes, please help talk about that.
Earning a revenue from your skills, from your talent, from the activities you do. That those could be as creators, like you can be a digital architect, a fashion designer, an artist, level designer, etc. You can be a community manager, someone who is here to curate content, to guide you through the metaverse, tell you the culture, who made this art, story of this creator. You can be also about just hosting people, welcoming them in the world, launching activities, games, virtual shows, helping for transaction and commerce, like selling you this statue as an NFT. Like I tell you the price, I put it into my land, etc. And also all the aspects around playing game and spending time as a player.
This is actually one of the questions from the audience. Like, when do you think people will start to actually have their full salary from jobs in the metaverse and jobs in Sandbox in particular?
So we have many people who already make a good living from creating content and launching and building for others. Those builders, as the first step, they launch a game where they also offer rewards like speedrun challenges, etc. Like if you participate and you win, you can earn some. Just the beginning, but it's interesting. It's starting organically. What we're building at Sandbox is a system which involves on one side NFT ticket and on the other side season reward. And the first season we will introduce in a couple of weeks. So we are aiming for mid-October. It's called the Alpha season. It's essentially about 30 days of event where you will be exploring 15 lands, multiplayer, single player. And as you come back every day and you win those games, or you visit and do activities, you progress, and that progression will unlock different tiers of reward that include NFTs and Sand token. So effectively, by spending time into the world, you earn
the daily quest
digital assets that can be turned into a revenue stream.
That's fascinating. So a little bit of like what we see with SLP, and like you do a quest, you get SLP that's or an NFT that's transferable to dollars. So, it's part of introducing some of that. That's so fascinating.
And it's step one. It's just us launching a first season. Now multiply that by the power of UGC. 166, 464 land and landowners, they launch their game and they launch their own season. As a user, then I can enter and play thousands of seasons. I can choose how I can earn NFTs or where do I spend my time, which creator actually offer me best value for my time. Can join a guild like YGG, Guild Gaming, and optimize my earning, win more by farming certain
So
resources.
there's almost a competition between the creators to tempt people to say, look, we're better than Axie, or you'll earn in a way that's more suited to your time, your time of day. And that's super fascinating. I hadn't thought about, I was thinking more just about like one game, one play to earn model, but you're talking about many play to earn models, each competing for people's attention, people's time, and finding new mechanics rapidly. And I mean, that kind of incentive to innovate feels like it'll move things forward even faster. That's so cool.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't say necessarily it's all about competing here, because it's about providing a variety of choice. As a user, then you get to decide, do I want to fight against hordes of enemies and loot a lot, or do I prefer just to socialize and attend like a yoga session and at the same time being paid for it or rewarded? That's really interesting. And creators can also collaborate through those virtual neighborhoods. Basically, you and your neighbor could decide to build something together, and make part of the season the exploration between your lands, rather than try to compete with your neighbor for your attention.
Well, we've got a couple of questions from the audience that I want to kind of end with. So one is, what first inspired you to create Sandbox?
Well, the long story is like about 10 years ago, Sandbox was just a 2D game, a physics simulator on web based on Congregate, and we saw that potential of like providing creative tools so anyone could make games without any programming knowledge, any sort of like specific skills. It turned out on mobile, it's just a game where you, by the touch of your finger, you could play with water, soil, you could plant a seed, drop that seed, put some water, and it grows a tree, etc. Initially, it was just physics simulator. Then we thought like, oh, let's add game characters, mechanics, and people started to build their own platformer, shooter, mazes, even Pac-Man games, etc. Yeah, and that showed us like essentially the creativity of the community, even people who are not professional into making game, was amazing, and we always beat what our own team of industry professionals could do. And it feels so natural that those people who should be rewarded and earn a revenue from the content they create, that value they bring to our game or our platform, or they bring in general to platforms like Roblox or Minecraft or even Fortnite creative mode. And that's not been the case. So that's something that's been really bothering us for some time, like the success of the original Sandbox with 40 million downloads, 70 million player made creation. We had literally no way to reward the players and the creator for that. So that's, I would say, what's driving us. We need to put the power back into players and creator hands, let them truly own the content they create, the games they create, and grow success with our tools. And hopefully that will become really mainstream, part of like generational movement. Like, where are you working? Hey, rather, I'm just building stuff. I get an audience, I get a community, they buy my NFTs, we create cool stuff together, and I can make a revenue from it.
Well, another one is, how does interoperability work?
Absolutely. So interoperability is this idea that one single token NFT could have multiple representation into various decentralized applications. Typically, we are implementing progressively interoperability into Sandbox, meaning that you can play, interact, display NFTs that were not made in Sandbox ecosystem, not with our creation tool Voxedy. Here, you can see the first application just displaying them as 2D piece of art, animated or static, into our virtual world. It's the simple basis. Where we are going next, and I'm trying to show you that, is we're taking avatars collection like Bored Ape, Goethe Gang, Cyberkongs, and there's many others, very creative communities that make many avatars and turn those avatars into 3D characters that can then be played, interact with.
That's right. I saw a post a week ago. You guys bought a golden ape, didn't you? And I saw a 3D avatar that was in there too.
That's it. That's one of the great example indeed. But the community itself now created as the born mummies waking up, monstrosities, dystopunk. We've seen Voxodeus, Voxis, and many other. And I think it's very appealing and complementary to be adding true utility, more utility to an NFT by being the virtual world where the holders of that single unique NFT can then come to life and be played, interacted with in new manners.
I mean, in the world of virtual beings, there's been a feeling of, oh, we can just have the virtual being by itself. But part of the point I wanted to put across in this whole summit is virtual beings in virtual societies, that you can't separate them. We can't have a virtual being without a world. And, maybe vice versa too, that we want these characters in these worlds, but certainly a virtual being needs a world to live in, to interact in. So where is this golden ape, out of interest? Is that going to become some kind of massive monument that's 5,000 feet tall staring down at us, or where's that going to go?
Maybe it will also be playable and displayed in the collection. And you're right. Like, I think like all those avatar collections, they start as simple 2D images, very creative in their design. You might or might not appreciate the look and feel based on your personal preference. But what's interesting behind is like Sandbox becomes this place where the whole environment can develop, the whole stories can develop around those characters. So we bring the lore, we bring the quest, we bring the gameplay, and that's why we are so complementary. Any community of characters, and in a way, I was reading this on the New Yorker interview magazine of Bored Ape. We're living a moment where like new IPs, new series, the next Disney, the next Marvel is being created from just a 2D avatar collection combined with virtual worlds to develop a whole universe owned by the community, created in a crowdsourced manner, you will see, and taking so many different shapes. Like it's not just Sandbox as virtual, it's totally transmedia, like social media channels, YouTube, on merchandising.
Well, I mean, of course, somebody could, without even owning an ape, but potentially it'd be good if you did own the ape, can create a world, a kind of sandbox avatar of the ape, and a game for it to be in, Decentraland avatar. You have to assume there are going to be Fortnite skins of Bored Apes, and many of it not necessarily requiring, for Bored Apes in particular. For Lava Labs, it's different, but not requiring the centralized oversight, so that individuals can kind of play to earn that character, which is obviously very different to Mickey Mouse, where they're so officious and controlling.
That's absolutely, I totally agree. And one thing we're also thinking about is like some of those NFTs that we own into Sandbox collection now, part of our foundation, will be used as rewards. So I think it's cool to play Sandbox in a play-to-earn season, earn Sandbox NFT made by the community ourselves. But it's even cooler to think like, wow, I'm playing a play-to-earn season and the price is a $1 million worth Bored Ape. And why we can do that is because we were early supporters and we bought those NFT, taking, and we, with the potential upside of increase of value, that value could increase because we had the utility of the virtual world or not, but it's cool that you can come to Sandbox, play, and earn something that's outside of Sandbox as well. That's for me that like the true.
You're right. That is sort of interoperability made real, and I love all of this. Well, Sebastien, c'était incroyable de vous voir. And yeah, so exciting, so cool to see it. And thank you so much. I mean, this has been absolutely terrific. So, let's let's see each other in the metaverse at some point.
Absolutely. We are more than welcome to come and say hi from within with your avatar. Can't wait to see you in there.
I know, we're going to have to hang out.
And let's do a little dance to leave. We have made it, so that's break dance.
À plus, Sebastien.
Bye.